Ampire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. What's up? Happy Thursday, everybody. What's going on? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Week 2 is here. We're already in week 2.
Yeah. Let me preface this by saying, as you know, and I've talked about in the past, I don't have an interest in anymore. But if I wanted to, cannot bet on the NFL. But I do follow lines because I do think Vegas, it's instructive in getting a feel for everything because they seem to know, and the lines that they place are often very close to the outcomes. And the one for the Giants Commanders game keeps moving in a direction that it's possible that this will either be a pick 'em or maybe the Giants are a slight favorite by the end of all of this, the way that it's moved throughout the week, which does not make me feel confident, honestly. I'm trying to blow it off, and I know that I can't because the line is partially based on where money is coming from, and they move it, which means a lot of people were betting on the Giants early in the week. And that's why they moved it, but it's down to like 1.5. So they're not even what would be a standard 3-point favorite in a home opener against a team that had a terrible start. This is not promising. But they're just, the smoke signals from out there are not good, really.
Well, it's also Vegas latching on to recent results, right? What have we basically been talking about since Monday? This Giants team, for whatever reason, no matter how bad both of these teams are, definitively takes care of this team when Washington is probably even a slightly better team. For some reason, for whatever reason, it happens. And then last year was the biggest indictment of it, where Tyrod Taylor and your boy Tommy Cutlets both beat them. And Jones plays well against them. I don't blame Vegas here. You would just hope that we would have gotten some kind of benefit of the doubt. New era, home opener, weather's going to be clear.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well. The fact that all of that is stacking up and Vegas is still going, we don't like Washington. Code red.
This is one of those where the media can be helpful, but not in a good way, because you kind of can't talk about it in the locker room because of the NFL rules. I would think some of the players know this. The ones that do, you're always like, I hope you're not betting on stuff. If you could just plant this seed that the public at Vegas kind of don't think you're going to win, I think would be helpful here.
Sure.
Because this is one of those, at 0-1, there's no such thing. I've gotten over it. There's no such thing as a must win. But I do believe emotionally for the fan base, it is. This is one of those, it's the home opener of the new era. All the promises of you're going to like how we play. This is a weaker team. No one thinks they're going to end up in the playoffs. It's a division game. It's time to start turning the page on this rivalry, which Kayvon Thibodeau said yesterday wasn't one, by the way. And I just think it's time to, this is a show me game. I think for the fan base, we've had a lot of these, through the years. This is a show me game. We've had a couple against them. Remember, it was a couple of years ago. They had a Sunday night game against them. They had been on a win streak. It was the final, everyone, there was one of the first times that late in the season, everyone expected them to win a game and have all that momentum. And that was the one where they played really poorly. Offense was extremely lackluster. And then they got a couple of bad calls at the end of the game when McLaurin was called for being illegal formation, when he had asked the referee, was he offside? And they got jobbed.
They got jobbed on that one.
Yeah. And then the next play was Curtis Samuel got mugged in the end zone and they didn't call the penalty. And the end was terrible and it didn't go their way, but it didn't change the fact that they played extremely poorly on a night game where they were supposed to dominate them. And I don't know what it is about this one. Yeah. I don't know what it is about this one, but they just have had a hard time. Go look at the Giants record against everybody else and go look at it against Washington. It doesn't really make any sense. And with everything kind of the page being turned here, I think we just kind of feel the page is going to get turned on that too. And Vegas is not saying that right now. So
I think one of the other things you have to look at too, the two that they've won, one of them, the Giants were conceding in a way we've never seen before, right?
That's
that was the one up there where taking a knee on third down or whatever it was, right? Wasn't it a knee on third
on their
down
own
on the
5-yard line,
right? Like
first half,
yeah,
because they were scared to run a play, which I've
right.
never seen
Right.
that before. Yeah,
Right. So that was one of them, and then the other one was the week 2 Thursday nighter. My boy Dustin Hopkins nails a last-second field goal, and that one was the other one. Which same thing though, they had no real business like keeping it that close. Jones ripped off a few runs, but I mean, still.
that's another one. Remember, that was the one where Dexter Lawrence was called on a missed field goal.
Yes.
For doing something that gave him a second chance. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a very controversial call that gave him a second chance. So when they have beaten them, it's hair of their chinny chin chin.
Yeah.
And it's been a couple of years because it's been 4 games. They had a tie with them a couple of years ago.
That's right.
Now it's funny. I don't know what Dan Quinn's going to say about this to me, but when I talk to him tomorrow for the broadcast, I am going to bring up the amount of points that they scored against his Dallas defense. And it's like, he dominated them. Like, they shut them out last year. They gave up 17 aggregate points. They've given up Dallas over the last, 3 years or so. I think the Giants scored more than 20 in a game like once or twice. Like, so now, do we have Dallas's defense in the making? Like, I don't know about that, but at least from that perspective, they haven't had a problem slowing down Cutlets or Tyrod or Dimes for that matter. So I want to talk to, I'm sure he's going to give me a very coachy speak thing, and he's not going to be like, well, this is what we did to him. But I am going to bring it up because we've had problems with them, both sides of the ball, and they haven't. Not where he's been the last couple of years. Dallas has completely throttled them in most of the games that they've played. So, and that's a lot of teams have done that to them. So, but I do want to ask him and see what he says about it as to why his defense was so successful against them and our defense through the years. Dimes looks like a Pro Bowler when he runs the ball.
Yep. I will say this too, though. The stat, I think I want to say I saw JP tweet this yesterday, that the stat on Dimes is a little skewed. He has 10 touchdowns against Washington, and I think JP said 5 of them were in one game. So 5 total, because it's 10 total. I guess it's rushing and passing. So
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, but he basically said
it's probably right. I just have to go back.
So it was like this dominance. Is it like as bad as we think it is? He just gets wins, and of course it's kind of like pitcher wins, right? Where it's like it's not the most important stat in the world, but somehow he just does it against this team. So
all right, so let's get into it. Actually, I want to talk about him for a minute. Let me start with him, because I read this story after the week 1 game with Minnesota, and I'm just going to read it verbatim, and it's from CBS, and it's something. While New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones has been lighting a lightning rod for criticism from the moment he was chosen number 6 overall in 2019, there was a decidedly vicious and alarming escalation in New York sentiment towards him after the Giants' lifeless, listless 28-6 loss to the Vikings in week 1. Jones, who played arguably the worst game of his entire career coming off a torn ACL and looked like a shell of the quarterback he was when he defeated the Vikings in the 2022 playoffs, was completely savaged by boos to the point that Vikings players began to pity him. Even then, the humiliation ritual was not over. Certain people who attended Sunday's week 1 opener at the Meadowlands went as far as to stick around outside the players' exit after the game to boo and heckle him, subjecting him to a walk of shame as he left the stadium to simply get to his car and drive home. Wow.
That is absurd. Like,
I agree.
I don't even care.
It's too much. It's one thing when we make fun of them and we call it,
yeah,
guys, grow up. Like, what are you doing?
I would say this too. I understand the Vikings point of view too. Like, I read that one. I didn't hear about that second part. I heard about the first part with the Vikings players. Even I thought, oh wow, that's got to be bad. Because even in the NFL, business is business, baby. Like, if you're dominating a quarterback, who cares? But the fact that it was week 1, they're saying they feel bad for Jones, and then to stick around and heckle the guy. Guys, you didn't draft him first overall. You didn't draft him out of USC. You didn't, like, he wasn't hyped up to be this Peyton Manning type quarterback. Like, And then this goes into the realm too that I always get pissed off at sports fans for. The Giants gave him that extension. Was he not supposed to take it? Like, use every shred of logic you've got here. And he's coming off a major injury. I'm not saying he's like this amazing quarterback, but I don't know what you want to do. And the team basically did tell you on Hard Knocks they don't want him anyway. So what does this solve? Like, they want him gone. Like, the wheels are in motion that he's not going to be your quarterback after this year.
We talked about this when Hard Knocks came out, and I talked about it with Anita yesterday on the show. If you missed it, you can listen to her. She just went off on him.
It was great.
She is my Trump. I could just trigger her and say anything about the team. Like, I was talking to Kime about this yesterday too, because he has, I guess, Jordan Ranan's going to come on his podcast this week, and he goes, "I love Giants Week just for the guests because they go full New York. Like, they just, even the reporters can't help themselves, but they just go full New York on them." And he's like, and the conversation gets weird. And mine with it. That's why I love having Anita on, because I just know if I just tee her up, she's going to go off on that team. And like, we talked about it, but I'm like, you should be mad at the front office. Like, don't be mad at this guy. Like, I said this the second they gave him that extension. I went, they're going to regret that. Like, you can't pay somebody of that level that kind of money, even though you've convinced yourself you have to do this. Like, the Joe Shane thing that really was illuminating was that he puts prices on things and just doesn't want to be flexible about the idea of what those prices are. Meantime, teams like the 49ers don't do that. The Eagles clearly didn't do that with the one player we're talking about. And go look, like, I've always firmly landed on, you just pay your stars at whatever position they are. You know, as long as they want to be there and you want them back and there's no like crazy injury concerns, you just pay them. You're like, I don't care. If you've got the best guard, you just pay the best guard. You don't worry about like the number and exactly where it is. Like, that's what the Commanders did with Cosme. They think he's going to be a Pro Bowl guard, so they just paid him. Like, they're not worrying about it. They just did it. And the Giants seem to have gotten caught up in this. Well, is he worth 12.5 when he's only worth, when we think he's worth 12? And then, well, you just like, we've got to pay. They think they got a deal on Daniel Jones at 40+ million a year because they see what the number is. And I think that they're like, it was so eye-opening how they're making their decisions. It didn't look good to me. I was talking to Anita about it. I'm like, the craziest part is, since they put that out, they think they look smart in that series. And everybody on the outside does not. Like, they have seriously no self-reflection to put that out there and think that that made them look really smart. And I agree with you on Jones. Like, I saw, you know, I rewatched their game and it is really, really, really bad. But I'm with you too. Like, guys, like, these are human beings. This guy is coming off of a serious injury. I come to terms with the fact that he is not that level of a quarterback, but really at this point, the organization who knows that, said that, publicized that, should be the one that you're booing and heckling because they made the decisions that they made to be in the positions that they're in. He's just going out there and playing. Like, so as much as I hope we take advantage of him too, like, I was like, read that and I'm like, that's appalling. Like, it really is.
No, and like, this is, I'll use one of my favorite Doc Walker isms. Those are low IQ individuals. Like, Philly fans, last year, we were knocking them, but then they were actually the smart ones, right? They knew it was the scheme and Sirianni. They weren't blaming Hurts. They weren't blaming any specific player. And all I would point to is to Giants fans is, you think it's all Jones' fault? You guys have sucked for over a decade now. It's not all him. It doesn't all fall on him. Yeah. Like, where do you get off in saying it's all this guy's fault? I can't believe I'm defending Daniel Jones on the week we're playing the Giants. But like,
when I read this one and I felt the same way, I'm like, are you kidding? Like, really?
Like, I think you're smarter than that. Like, you guys have a bunch of failed draft picks, a bunch of terrible signings. You ran through coaches faster than we have down here. Like, why is he the crux of you blaming for everything? I don't really get it. So yeah, like, that's, to me, that's the fan base too, just not being smart about all of it. It is not his fault 100%. And he was never hyped up to be this game-changing quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing, you know, and hopefully, because I'm assuming he did the interview yesterday, so I'm assuming he's playing. Because they were asked, like, are you going to turn to Drew Lock? And Dayball said no. So that to me is a good thing. Vegas doesn't think that's a good thing, but I think it's a good thing that they're sticking with this. Like, I actually think if they had made a quick change, which would be unusual to do it, but had they done it, I'd be a little more concerned about their offense if they'd put Lock in, because it'd be part of the we don't know what we don't know. And that guy's not struggling physically and maybe mentally a little bit, whatever. The other thing that does worry me, though, is this one. So the Giants' strength is going to be their defensive line. It will be. They have 3 potential Pro Bowlers: Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, who they signed for $1 billion, and Kayvon Thibodeau. This is going to be their strength just because they're all singularly all Pro Bowl caliber players, and they're all very good. And if they ever get coordinated together right, it's going to be a dangerous line. In fact, it's the one thing about them that I look at and I go, that's going to be an issue. Apparently against Minnesota, they did not get a lot of pressure. Minnesota controlled time of possession. They're pissed because it's Sam Darnold. You know, the New York fans are like, I can't even believe we're getting roasted by Sam Darnold after all. Maybe that's part of it too. Like, I can't. Sam Darnold walked in here on a team that nobody thinks is going to be very good this year and killed us. And oh, by the way, the best part of our team was a no-show. And we lived this for a while when we had Chase, Montez, Allen, and Payne. When they no-showed in games, people went off on them. This happened the other day. And this is the other part that I don't love, because this is an interesting matchup. Washington last week, some of the best talent that Tampa Bay had did not play. So I don't think we got to see them kind of one-on-one deal with Pro Bowl or high-level caliber players. They actually dealt with a rotational player. What they dealt with was scheme. And we can discuss whether they handled it very well. This week, I don't think they're just dealing with scheme. What we're going to learn about our offensive line, because we don't know what they are right now, is can they handle top-level talent? And top-level talent that's been hearing it from their media and their fans that they stunk up the joint. And I know how this goes. The second you start telling guys like this that they stink and they read about it and they hear about it and they can't get away from it, they show up the next week. So this is the part of the game that I feel like is going to be the game. Can our offensive line handle a pissed off group of Pro Bowl caliber players, which is the best unit? And if they can, we're going to win. And if they can't, Jaden is either leaving the pocket early, actually getting sacked this time, or who knows what else.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up first, essentially, in terms of matchups. I don't know if you follow Jordan Renan on Twitter, but he posted a video yesterday. It was pretty good. It was full Jordan, essentially. He was like, I know I criticized this team, and maybe it's a little too much at time, but he was like, look for monster games from Thibodeau and Burns. He was like, they're hearing the noise from last week. And even he said, over the last few years, this Washington offensive line hasn't been good. They're still trying to figure out what they're doing. And even he posted like a 1-minute video of, watch out for these two this week, because essentially they know that they didn't perform well last week. And now they know what they're walking into down in Washington.
You know what? This might be better than what we've had in the past, which is we just feel like, why aren't we winning these games against them? Vegas would suggest we should. There's no nobody's sitting there basically telling the Giants, like, it's not these narratives that are going into it. I think that's what I don't like about this. It's like, this is the one time where, oh God, we're at home. The line's going the wrong way. The one group that we don't need to be motivated and pissed is motivated and pissed. Oh God. Like, it's all adding up to, this is not going to be a total reversal from last week. This is going to be a dogfight with them.
Right.
And hopefully, if the football gods like us, they're going to grant us a win here, because it feels like it's heading in a direction. And, the Bengals are playing the Chiefs this week in Arrowhead, so they could easily be 0-2 when we play them on Monday Night Football. So this is and you know how that goes. Like, you don't think they're not going to show up and be pissed? Like, of course they are. Do you think they're not going to hear it all week if they lose this week, especially if they lose bad? Like, if they score 10 points against them and lose 35-10 and hear all the, you ain't Burrowhead anymore crap from them, and are you even a contender? That's not going to be a fun week leading into having to go there on a spotlight game where on Monday night they're going to be talking about all your problems, and they already know what it is. We better win this game. I don't care how. I don't care if it's by a point. I don't care if we get a safety. I don't care how it happens. It's got to happen. It does. And I don't like the things that are like getting teed up here as we head into Sunday at all.
I think my worst fear on Sunday, too, is the complementary football could be a disaster. If the secondary doesn't get it together and Jones pops off 1, 2, 3 big plays and they find themselves down again, 10-0, 14-0, 17-0, or something like that. And then Jaden is forced to do the same thing he did last week, and that was drop back a bunch and either take what he can get or try to make it work with these wide receivers. That's what I'm actually really afraid of too. Like this we talked all offseason about the weapons Jaden has and the lack thereof. And granted, I think they have a really good running game going. I thought Eckler actually was really good after rewatching the game. But I look at this and I go, I don't think we all anticipated the defense. And granted, once again, zoom out, Tampa's really good. But if this defense doesn't get their you-know-what together, then Jaden all of a sudden is going to be dropping back a bunch in all of these second halves, and it's just not good football. It's not good complementary football towards each other.
It's going to have to be better for sure. And we'll see. Like, it's going to have to be better, but I don't like how this is adding up right now. And, we'll see. Give it another day, see what they say. And then I'm hoping that there's kind of just collective, because everything is so new here, when we start bringing up all these things like, you guys haven't beaten the Giants and they can't beat anybody else and all this stuff. And they just go, we don't know what you're talking about. We're all new here, guy. And I think that's a fair sentiment. Like, there's a lot of carryovers, but the majority of the team was not here. The majority of the people in the building were not here. They didn't live this. So this is one of those turn the page, guys. Like, it ain't the same old. And if we have an opportunity to beat a division team because they're kind of down and it's the right time to do it, we're just going to do it. Don't get so hot under the collar about the whole thing. So
I will say this, especially last year, it's not like the defense fell apart against this team. It was really the offense that let them down both of those
up there
games.
It was.
Yeah, up there. And
where 7 points against them.
Right.
There.
They scored 14.
That was the one John Allen after the game.
Do-rag John Allen game.
Was dressed up and said, I'm sick of this crap, you know what? And then walked out the door.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I look at that one. I go, it wasn't the defense fault on that first one. The second one, I can't really remember. I know Cutlets won that game, but I think it was like
we sacked him 9 times and lost.
Yes. Right. Yes. So
there's amazing stats in these matchups. We sacked them. It was something like, I read this the other day. Washington only had like 39 sacks, was very low last year. Low number. I mean, all their defensive numbers are bad. 13 of the 39 came into 2 games against the Giants. Games that they lost,
yeah.
13 sacks in 2 games against backup quarterbacks and lost them both. Think about that for a second.
It's unbelievable.
It is. All right, let me take a quick break. Ray wants to show he's been 6:30 Sports Capital. All right, here with John Keim from ESPN. John Keim Report. As you can probably hear in the background, we're out at practice getting ready for week 2. You've had a couple days to kind of think about what happened on Sunday, which, if you put in context, they played a returning playoff team with their entire core intact on the road against a team that's brand new with a rookie quarterback. A loss shouldn't be that surprising. I think it's the way they lost that I think people were a little upset about.
For sure. I think, you could expect first game that there's going to be an adjustment period, right? There always is with any young team, with any young player, with any new system, etc. I think the disappointing thing to me is the way the defense kind of couldn't stop the run and really had a hard time giving up big plays.
Yeah.
And, it's Mike Evans and all that, but Baker Mayfield, they made him look really, really good, right? And his ability to get outside the pocket or squeeze up through the pocket and make plays, that was disappointing. So there were aspects of it where you say, I understand this. I thought Jade Daniels for a first game looked pretty good. Now, you look back and you say, there are plays that he could have made in the past game that he did not.
Yeah.
That he'll learn with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But there were other things on defense, some of the leverage with the corners and all that I was disappointed in. Like, you know, there's some areas where you say, you got to be better here. And the tackling was bad.
If there was going to be a side of the ball that felt maybe a little ahead than the other, then I would have chosen the defense. And I think that maybe is the bit of the surprise of the outcome.
Agree. And, you know, the funny thing is, like, you look at the story around the NFL is, oh, wow, look at how the quarterback numbers were way down. And why is that? Well, the defense is usually ahead of the offense and blah, blah, blah. That was not the case here at all. Now, again, it's still a first year in this system, etc. And they were close. Like, if you get Baker Mayfield down a couple times, there's things are a little bit different. If they, you know,
they missed 4 sacks minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were there to be made. But the problem is, that's a mobile quarterback, and you're going to face that guy that kind of guy more than a few times.
You know, outside of, like, I think the tackling was a big concern. The third down stops was a big concern. Not finishing the play is a big concern. And I'd like to think, the tackling will get better. Like, I'll buy that. That, like, okay, so it wasn't great in week 1, it'll get better. But the secondary is a true concern. So, like, to what degree is it a concern in your mind?
Well, I think, let's break it down. Mike Samuelson, like, he gave up some plays. He's a rookie. So there are a lot of things that, if I'm him, there's sometimes you say, okay, you got a lot going on in your head for the first game, right? So do you how much does that impact your play? So I'm going to give him that. Like, he's a rookie making his first start. Understandable that you're going to struggle. But you got to get, like, guys like Forbes. I know it's the first year in this system for him, only second year in the NFL, but you got to be better with your technique. And that's a concern I have for him is, will he ever be that, right? Can he get consistent enough with that where he can actually help this team? And, so I think, there are some other things with it, with the safeties. I'm not I like Jeremy Chin in the box. He was playing a lot back deep. I don't know that he's that guy you want back there. I like Quan Martin back there, Percy Butler back there. So I think there's some things that you have to learn a little bit more about him. Can he really play back there? That to me is a wonder, because there was one play where the touchdown to McMillan where Samuelson's got to drop deeper, right? But the safety's got to rotate over as well. So they both messed up on that play. And I feel like Samuelson is going to get better in that area because it's a natural growth. So I just think they're but again, I think there's positives that you can say that they need to do this better. But the corners are the ones where the outside corners, can they hold up? And St. Juste I didn't think was bad, but is he good enough?
I didn't think so either.
Right.
I think they saw touchdowns get scored on him by a Hall of Fame receiver off perfect throws.
Right. So right.
Everybody needs to relax a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they face it. They're in a division with some really good receivers.
Yes.
They have the guys who can cover them long enough to be good, better defensively? That's the question I have.
Yeah. I think also just kind of broadly, when you hear about you're going to like the way we play, you're going to like the way we get down, the way we bring it, the missed tackles just doesn't fit with that. So, and that's why I think Dan Quinn talked about it during his press conference today about how they talk about accountability. I loved his line where he said, you don't have to be a jerk to confront somebody, and accountability is daily. And that was actually refreshing to hear. They need it. Yeah. They do. They need it.
Oh, for sure. For sure they do. And, what I'm most curious to see is when you have these games like that as a new team, a new system, a new regime, how then do you come out the next week? Where do you get better? Because, this is I know fans here are tired of waiting, and I get it. We all know that. These guys just got here. They can't correct the sins of the past in one opening game, right? And I think that's, but what kind of growth do you see? Do you actually see them building a team? I think this fan base will be patient if in the coming weeks they see a team being built.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get to the offense. So here's where I landed on Jaden in watching the film. I thought in the first half he was sped up. He looked like a rookie in some of the decisions he made in terms of leaving the pocket quickly, but I loved his instincts of not putting the ball in harm's way and making decisions. But, I think, and they've reiterated this over and over, they wish he would have remained pass first, and it was his debut, and he's playing a team that's going to put a lot of pressure on him, and let's see how he reacts. But the second half came around, I think slowed down a little bit for him. At the same time, they started leaning on him more. So when they say, we don't want him running the ball 16 times. They caught a lot of design runs in the second half. It felt to me like they started to feel like to get back into the game, they needed to lean on him. And I wonder if you felt the same way about it.
Well, I think there were definitely a few more design runs in the second half. And there were other plays where I felt like it goes back to what you said in the first half too. There were a couple plays in the pass game. First of all, if he hits the pass to Terry McLaurin, the game looks a little bit different. On the first play, that's a 70-yard touchdown. I have faith that he will complete that the next time because he showed in college last year, especially, that he can do that very well. So that's something I don't worry about. But there were a couple other throws. I'm like, you got to make this throw. You've got to make this throw and that throw. So yeah, I agree. Like there were a couple more design runs. Some of them though are zone reads where his decision is on him. It's not on them.
That's right.
So like the one at the goal line where his helmet pops off, should have handed it to Brian Robinson. Like the line has pushed, the end sitting there waiting for him. You've got to hand that off, right? Reward your guy in that situation, right? To me, I think what has to happen for him is, I think through experience, he's going to be okay with this because he's not a guy who's always been run first. He's just not. So I think when he starts to trust that this is a good NFL window, I can squeeze it in there, that's when you'll start to see this.
I think his internal clock's going to slow down.
Yeah,
and people,
sure.
It was his debut. It was his first game
first game
against a team that traditionally blitzes more than anybody else. And then I had learned kind of pregame that they weren't backing off at all. In fact, they were going to do more of it. They wanted to test them.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised that it worked out in their favor, obviously.
No,
Yeah.
and I think the other thing is, too, with him running on scrambles, they're playing a lot of man coverage. It's designed for the quarterback, then if it's not there and you can get out, you're going to have some runs there, right? And so what I'll be curious to see this week, Bram, is the Giants aren't playing as much man as they have in the past. They don't blitz as much as they have in the past. So you're playing a lot more zone. How does that impact the pass game? Does it give you some more chances early to get rid of the ball quick? And how does it affect your ability to run? Because now you have more eyes on the quarterback when he runs. So I think it'll change the game. I don't know how. It could change it for the better for him and for the passing game. We'll see.
I'll know a little bit more when I review the Giants off their opener because they have a new defensive coordinator this year. They used to be blitz happy too under Rick Martin. Not anymore. So I'm going to take a look at that. But, with Tampa Bay, Kalijah Kancey was out, Logan Hall was out. So they were missing a couple starters, and they kept doing what they did. With the Giants, it's different up front. The strength of their defense will be this year. If it wasn't in week one, it will be Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Brian Burns. It will be that. So off of that, what did you think of the offensive line in its first go? Even though I think it's going to be very hard to ask how are they going to perform against probably a very different defense and a level up in terms of the roster that the Giants put out in that unit.
I love Dexter Lawrence. I think he's a really good player and it's disruptive inside. And Burns and Thibodeau are going to be challenges for them. So what I felt like the offensive line last week, there were a lot of times I felt like the pressure scheme fooled them. And there are a couple times where there's one time where Coleman's at left tackle, they're faking Antoine Winfield, he takes 2 steps up, Coleman sets to defend him, the line slides the other way, and you got a linebacker blitzing through that gap, and he didn't get over there quick enough, Coleman. So they fooled them a lot of times, whereas I also think on the other side, they got a couple stunts that were really well designed, and then a couple times where Wiley's getting beat to the inside, and he has a history of take him upfield, cut back to the inside, and win. And I think that's where you have to that has to improve because that's not going to be good enough this week. You'll have some problems with that. And then for Dan, because I don't know that you're going to have the gaps to run through like you did last week with only 4 guys rushing. Do they put a spy on him? You know what I mean? They may have that ability, whereas the Bucs only did a little bit because they're going to blitz so much. So I think it's a massive challenge going against this front for a line that is still kind of trying to come together.
I mean, the difference is I think it was scheme last week that you're worried about. Are they going to be able to deal with scheme this week? It is full on. These are Pro Bowl caliber players, one-on-one Pro Bowl across the board up front. We're going to find out how they handle guys like that.
And Diaby, I felt like did a really good job for Tampa Bay off the edge, number 0. And he got Cosby one time just driving back. He got Wiley a couple times going to the inside. So it may be a situation, Bram, like we saw in the preseason, where you may give up some pressures, but if the ball's out quick and Daniels can do that, then you're going to mitigate that issue. Whereas I think for Tampa, you're pressing, you're going to play more press man off with the blitz, coupled with them, maybe a little bit harder to get into your routes. So I think they're that's why I say I'm going to be curious to see how this impacts what these guys want to do.
One other thing on the offense, there was no intermediate passing game. the other day. And I think part of that was Jaden vacated pockets early. Second half, they were calling different types of plays. Obviously, that has to change. What was just your kind of takeaway from the receivers on the 10 to 15 yard routes it was non-existent?
There were some times where, again, it was open. It was there. It just wasn't thrown, or maybe it was, maybe it's 15 to 20 yards downfield where, you may have this, except that the pressure's coming in. Now you've got to vacate. So there's a few reasons, but the bottom line is it wasn't there. And so some of that, Bram, too, I wonder, the ability to win quick off the line. That's one. I think against the zone defense, it makes it easier to hit some of those. They may end up giving them and just let them see how patient they are, right? And not give up, allow some big plays, whether it's legs or down the field. So it may, but yes, I agree. That has to be a bigger part of this. You can't either go deep ball or run 12 yards. That's just not a way to sustain an offense, or dump it to the back. So yeah, I think it has to be more of a factor.
I think this is all going to develop this year because it is all new, and it's a new offensive coordinator and all new pieces and a young quarterback. But there's just part of me that goes, I look at the profile of the team with the running backs they have and Jaden's ability to run, and I could see this becoming a much more 60-40 run team at some point. I could see that. Yeah. I don't know if they'll go that way, but I could see that.
Oh, yeah. I don't. 60-40 is a lot, but I could see a different
55-45?
Yeah.
50-50?
Correct. Yeah, for sure. I think 50-50 in the NFL now is considered a run-heavy team.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think.
But look at the profile of the players they have. I mean, some of it might just kind of become that.
I think eventually that's what we'll see. And the problem that was one of the issues the other day. Early on, it was too many 2-yard carries. It wasn't enough where you could get ahead of the sticks a little bit. So, but yeah, I could see that for sure. They really like Brian Robinson. I think Eckler's done a nice job as a receiving back too. So I think those backs could be leaned on a little bit more.
I mean, it's one game. There's 16 teams that lost. There are other teams like the Jets who got rolled over in a game against a very good playoff team. There's plenty of teams. Atlanta's probably not psyched about how they started off, or the hype that they had with all the newness. So they're not alone in all of this, but you spend more time with the players in the locker room than I do. I'm more kind of periphery and with the coaches and getting a general sense. How disappointed were they? Have you been able to gauge them yet about what happened and whether there's a carryover effect? Because I know that's not the start they were looking for either.
No, and the big thing is when we're in the locker room after practices, then we'll see that a little bit more. After the game, what I heard is nothing, right? In terms of it was very quiet, which you would expect. But what I also heard is guys saying, listen, this is just starting. I think that was the attitude, and it should be the attitude because it is just starting.
Joe Gibbs was 0-5. Marty Schottenheimer was 0-5.
For fans, it's an extension of however many years. For players and coaches, it's game one of year one of a new system. What happened here before does not pertain to this team. It may pertain to the fan base. So I think that's listen, there's only 21 holdovers from the past. So 31, we only 52 on the roster last week. 31 players were new to this. So you can't, that's what they harp on. I think the feeling is it's different. And that part of the reason is Jaden Daniels. They know, guys were saying this after the game in the locker room, we know we have our guy there. So it's just a matter of get better. In the past, you didn't have, they may have liked Sam Howell, but nobody was saying the stuff they were saying about him privately.
Yeah.
Right? And not that they were bashing Howell, but it wasn't they're this kid is really good. So that's where the difference is compared to years past, is they have the belief that guy can do it. And when Robert was here his rookie year, they knew he can do some things. So it gives you hope, and I think that's what they have.
All right, last thing, and we'll go from this isn't the past anymore, everything's different. We are in the present, though, and the past applies here. The New York Giants have had a terrible record against everybody. With an exception of a couple years ago in Dayball's first year where they made the playoffs and won a playoff game, they've been awful, but their record against Washington has been astronomical. Washington hasn't beat them in 3 years. What do you make of this? How in the world do they come in and beat? It doesn't even matter who their quarterback is, and they beat them.
It's the most inexplicable thing that I've seen covering this team, because it's not like during this time the Giants have been good, and it's every year the storyline's the same. I was talking to Jordan Ronan for the podcast. He covers the Giants for ESPN. I'm okay, he's talking about how bad the Giants look and how big a game this is for the quarterback and for the coach. I'm
hasn't mattered here.
No, and we've heard that how many times, and it doesn't matter. That's the problem. So if and I don't want to put listen, there's no must-win game in week 2. Like this is you're building something long-term here.
I do feel like maybe not must-win for the play or anything. I think emotionally, I think it is.
I think for the fan base, you absolutely need it, and I agree with that. But the other thing is, you can't come out and accept a tough loss to the Giants. You just can't.
No.
That's a team you have
not
to
at home.
No, not at home, not in the opener. Etc. There's all, and you know they're a wounded team, and the other thing is that's a team that I don't think has a ton of confidence. Punch them in the mouth early and test that, right? Because I just have a feeling that's going to be a team we've seen those implosions. If they don't get that turnaround quick, this could implode quick.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's acceptable.
Yeah, we have experience with implosions.
We have a lot of experience, but I'm not going to say it's acceptable to lose them.
Yeah.
I just don't think if they lose, does it mean this team's going to be horrible for years? Well, no. However, you've got to win this game.
Yeah.
You've got to win this game.
I agree. You can read John Keim at ESPN.com. See him on ESPN when he graces his presence on their airwaves, and of course, listen to his great podcast, The John Keim Report. Thank you.
Thanks, Bram.
All right, welcome back. Very much the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. One last little thought. Maybe we'll talk about this more tomorrow. But in thinking about what's going on with them right now and thinking about Hard Knocks for sure, if this goes sideways, their season, and a lot of that might kind of start to hinge on what happens Sunday, because if they somehow lose bad, if they lose bad again somehow to Washington, their fans are going to flip. I mean, if they lose again 28-6, they're going to, especially because they're so used to beating Washington, they're going to flip out.
Yeah.
But if it starts to go sideways, I actually think there probably is a crack in the door right for Belichick to take over that team, right?
I think there's a crack, but I also, would you put it past them?
Not in the middle of the season. I'm talking about after.
No, but I think, would you put it past them that this whole Daniel Jones thing, to play it out with him, would not be a ploy for them to get a top pick? I mean, I wouldn't put it past the way that I saw how they operate on Hard Knocks to just be hey, we weren't bad enough to get one of those quarterbacks last year. Well, this is what we've got. Let's try to get one of them next year. I don't know. I just wouldn't put it past them for that, and keep Daboll. Because I think you and I have both agreed Daboll's a good coach. I don't think you just fire him off that. So
yeah, I'm leaning on what he did his first season with that team, and I'm I think that guy knows what he's doing. I don't love their roster, which I think is what the real problem is. And then after Hard Knocks, I don't love their decision making. I really get it. And this will then be up to the mayor. Is it if they do have a really bad year and they do have a really high pick and they do have a new young quarterback coming in, do they want this front office making those decisions, even if that's the easy one to make? I don't know. I also think it's weird. I was talking to Anita about it yesterday. I'm they were so hot to trot to get Caleb, Jaden, or Drake May. Why didn't they just take McCarthy, Penix, or Nix? They seem to have cut off a delineation there, even though they were willing to pick any of those three, any of them.
Yeah. I mean, well, the one that actually made sense too would have been Penix, because you had Jones under contract. You had to play him. You would have played him for at least half the year, right? And then maybe you see what you got with him. But he was the one that everybody's going, oh, he's just got to sit for a year, make sure he's okay. And even Atlanta, though, they saw enough in preseason that they stopped playing him in preseason. So, yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, maybe they were doing the whole trying to trade down, and they didn't have any dance partners. But at that point, too, it's a quarterback. You just take them, and if it works out, then no one cares where you picked them. So, yeah, I don't understand either on that.
Yeah, I don't understand it. But I do think now, because everyone knows Belichick has this love affair with the Giants from when he was the defensive coordinator under Parcells in the 80s. I would bet, if you asked him the honest truth, if you're going to coach anywhere to break the all-time wins record, that he would probably say he would like to do it there. This team is sliding the wrong way. I thought Hard Knocks did not put them in a good light. It has started really poorly. Some of the decisions they're making are blowing up in their face already. I just see the door open for, because Belichick's going to come back next year. He's going to coach somebody, I think, next year. This organization is ripe for he could take it over as the president / GM / coach. So I'm watching that, and I don't like the idea of that at all. We don't need him in our division. That's not good.
I mean, I don't know. Can I counterpoint that? And that it's not like without Brady, he's been amazing.
Counterpoint the all-time winningest coach. Go ahead.
Sure. But counterpoint is that he hasn't been the same without Brady. His personnel decisions haven't been the same either. And not only that, like he'd have to go in there and establish his culture. I don't even call it a new culture. It's his culture where it's no nonsense. It's no BS. He's old school coach. No one's an old school coach anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Like that's my counterpoint. Like if they get off to a good start.
Andy's a likable version of it, but he works those guys hard in training camp. He plays them in preseason games. Like they're not, there's no new school attitude about them, and they win a ton.
Yeah, but Andy though is collaborative. Like listen to Travis Kelce talk about him. Listen to Mahomes talk about him. He's a hard coach, but he also asks the players, hey, do you want to try this? Hey, do you want to work on this? He's a little more collaborative than Bill ever was. Bill, it's his way or the highway. We saw that with personnel decisions, the people that started, all of that stuff. So I'm just saying, like, yeah, I don't want him in the division either, but I also know how the young rookie players that come into the league now, they're not used to that coaching anymore. I mean, they haven't been coached like that since before they were born, essentially. So I don't know. Like, it's not a guarantee that it would work either.
One other quick thing. Don Van Natta has a very long piece about Robert Kraft, which kind of reads like he's just complaining that he's not in the Hall of Fame and wondering, why am I not in the Hall of Fame? To which, like, I can't believe that he wants to talk about this and pitch himself this way. Like, really? Like, you're so incredibly wealthy. You've won so many Super Bowls. You're so incredibly successful. You're so involved in so many different things. Why is this end of life or towards end of life thing such a hang up for you that you must have it happen? Like, I just don't understand why he so badly needed to publicize this. I don't know why.
I have a theory on this one. One, it's also I will say for Kraft. Kraft is actually, he seems like he's one of the good people. Like he always loans his plane out for like charity efforts and stuff. And we've seen him give the plane to certain college teams that need it. Like I think Navy needed a charter at some point, and he gave up the Patriots plane. And I think he gave the plane for like some other relief efforts or whatever. Here's my theory on this though. Kraft, buddy with Brady, right? He was his best friend, prevented him from being traded, fired Belichick. He kind of knows it's never going to be better than that. I think he wants to go into the Hall of Fame and then sell the team. That's what I think he wants to do.
And I think maybe it also is he wants credit for the dynasty. He doesn't want just Belichick to have it. And he's been living with, is it Tom? Is it Bill? Is it both of them? And he's sitting there in the corner going, it's me too, of which I don't know if I would say that out loud.
Correct. And I mean, here's the thing too. Like, I'll give him credit for Foxborough, I guess, where that became kind of the cookie cutter of how stadiums are now, retail, stadium, all that stuff. But it's not original. Like, he wasn't the first one to do it. Yeah. And here's the other thing too. Like, Jerry's in the Hall of Fame, correct? Didn't he go in a couple years ago?
That's a big part of this, that they're not
right.
Not happy that Jerry Jones. Talk about just when you use the word fame, that applies.
Yes.
To Jerry Jones.
Yeah. And with Jerry though did help revolutionize the league a little bit. Like he got the biggest stadium out of all of it. He made his team into a brand. He was really good speaking with the media. Like, Jerry did all of these things as an owner that make him a Hall of Fame owner. Love him or hate him, he is a Hall of Fame owner. Kraft is not that. I'm sorry. Like,
God, he's won a lot of Super Bowls. It's a lot of Super Bowls. I don't know.
I mean, he wrote the checks, but all the billionaires in the league write the checks. Like, what did he do that was better than everyone else? Like, I don't know.
It's so strange. He's so kind of irked by that. Like, but listen, I guess when you've achieved certain levels of things, you expect a certain level of respect. He doesn't feel respected in this process. So maybe that's what it is. All right. Talk to you tomorrow. Bram, what's your show? He's been 6:30 Sports Capital.